Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Immigration Talk. It's going to be a very important one because we're going to talk about the 5 ways you can mess up your affidavit support, the top 5 ways you can do that. And the affidavit support form I-864 is something you do for family-based cases, primarily where you need to show that you're going to support the foreign person. People make the most amount of errors on this when they're filing on their own. And frankly, USCIS officers make errors in this section too. So you got to be very careful and be very prepared. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi here with my associate attorney, Anna Sergeeva. How are you, Anya?
Thank you, John. I'm okay. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to talking about this. We prepared some deep stuff that we can go into to avoid problems that you can have. But if you're interested in having a private consultation, just send us an email. Our contact information is below. Just note that this is general kind of information, educational purposes, not individual legal guidance. We're going to go over like some meaty, big topics that we see regularly. But again, if you want to have a private consultation, please email us. And don't forget to like and subscribe and comment so we get the reach out on these different systems. Now, one final thing is we have a detailed guide for marriage-based immigration cases, which is similar to other family-based kind of cases. It has a section on the I-864 Affidavit of Support that could be very helpful. So you could download that at marriageimmigrationlaw.com. That's marriageimmigrationlaw.com. You can download the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide is what we call it. And we'll have playlists here that go over other topics related to the affidavit of support. But having said that, let's jump into it. Anya, what is the first big mistake that we see people making with regards to the affidavit of support?
So the biggest mistake that we see in our practice, for example, when people file by themselves their applications, is not submitting the affidavit of support form I-864 with their initial application for adjustment of status. It's a simple thing, but it happens over and over again. And why it's so important? Because first thing is that USCIS can just deny your case even without issuing request for evidence that you provided and supplement the record later. Second thing is it's important because not just it can get denied, if it's not getting denied, your petition can spend much more time at USCIS being adjudicated because of this delay in that you didn't provide it initially. Now they need to send a request for evidence, they need to review it, and it takes more additional time, again, if you don't submit it with your initial application for adjustment of status.
And it's not only just the I-864 neck problematic. Some people mistakenly send a form called I-134 as part of the application, and that creates errors too. So the affidavit of support for a family-based case is form I-864. But Anya, who needs to file the I-864? Can you talk about that?
Yes, petitioner needs to file form I-864, and it's also a huge mistake that people think even if they don't meet the requirements, for example, and they are using a joint sponsor, the petitioning sponsor, the one who signs the, for example, form I-130, still need to file form I-864 affidavit of support, even though if they don't make enough income, even if they don't meet the income requirements. One more thing that I want to bring to your attention is that a lot of times we see that people are using digital signatures on these forms and on all forms, and this is not acceptable by USCIS. So please make sure you do it with USCIS, or you do it with the consular processing part. When you upload your affidavit of support to the SIAC website, please make sure not to use the digital signature, because again, if you're doing consular processing, it's gonna delay your case by at least like 3-4 months.
Yeah, you want to either send an ink copy or a photocopy of an ink signed form, but not one of these digital kind of stamps that you could go online of your signature, because that'll get a case returned. Next, number 2 is not being domiciled in the United States. So as the petitioner and sponsor of the financial affidavit support, you have to be living in the United States as part of the domicile requirement. Now, there is this one exception that says if you're living overseas, primarily, with the foreign person usually, that says you're going to move with them once the immigrant visa is issued to get a green card, you're moving at the same time. The regulations do permit that in word and in policy, but in practice, a lot of embassies will not accept that. So I usually will not go down that route unless you really have to, and kind of work and negotiate with the National Visa Center and the embassy for that. But it's something you want to prefer not to do. If you're doing consular processing in particular, the foreign person's coming through the embassy system and interview, you want to really, at least at the very latest, by the interview time, have moved into the United States. Just be aware of this domicile issue. It can cause delays by not living in the United States, and you have to negotiate with the National Visa Center to move the case for the embassy. It's something to be prepared for, and if you have these kind of issues, definitely talk with a lawyer in private. So, Anya, could you tell us about number 3?
Yes. So one more thing that constantly pops up when people present affidavits of support that are not acceptable by USCIS is that they present affidavits of support that do not meet the income requirements. And what I'm talking about here is there is this federal poverty guidelines that change every single year. So for this year, we're using edition 2022. I think every March or April of every year they do change them. And John, if you can bring it up to the screen, it's called I-864P. So if you just Google it, you'll find this. And for example, for 2 people, for the household of 2 people, it's going to be a bit less. For this year, it's going to be a bit less than $23,000. And depending on your size of your household, that's how you're going to calculate your household size. If you sponsored someone previously for the immigration petition and they have not become an U.S. citizen yet, you need to include all your children, even though they're not living with you together. You need to include all your dependents, and that's where we see a lot of people do a lot of mistakes by not calculating their household size properly. And one quick tip that we want to give you when doing Form I-864, and for example, you're doing it for your spouse, and there is this question on the form. You're going to see it on your screen right now. It says put 1 for yourself, put 1 for your spouse, right, and put 1 for the intending immigrant. So you're going to have 3 people. So what do we do here? We just put here, we put not applicable, NA. And that's how you're going to have your size properly calculated, 2, but not 3 people.
Wonderful. And also, when you're using the income for the affidavit support, it has to be lawfully earned income, not something that's illegal. And if you're working in the United States without work authorization, that income cannot be included. It has to be income that's lawful and is going to continue after getting the green card. So be mindful of that issue.
Yes, and please be very careful with marijuana-related income, because on the federal level, it's still illegal. It's still controlled substance. So if you have any income derived from cannabis industry, unfortunately, but this income it cannot be used with the affidavit of support. Even if it's marijuana is legal in your state, it's still not gonna be useful for the affidavit of support purposes.
Definitely. Now, the 4th note to make is regarding people who are using joint sponsors. This is if the main sponsor petitioner doesn't make enough money. The joint sponsor has a lot of the same requirements that you're going to have. So one is they have to be in valid status in the United States, either a green card holder or U.S. citizen. They have to be making valid income, doesn't have the income issues we discussed earlier. They have the domicile requirement too. They should be living in the United States. So you got to be prepared. These are just some basic stuff you have to consider for the joint sponsor. Many times we have people who have a cousin who's here on a work visa. We can't use them, or a cousin who's a citizen but living overseas. We won't be able to use that because the same domicile requirement applies to sponsors throughout the process. And Anya, the 5th, what's the last big issue that we see with people filing for affidavit supports?
Thank you, John. So taxes. Taxes are very, 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 very important. Some people, they forget to include their taxes. Okay, and when you can use either tax return that you can request from IRS, okay, or you can also use your tax return form 1040. USCIS prefers for people to use the tax transcript.
The tax transcript is what you request from IRS on their website. It's a shortened version of your tax return.
Exactly. Thank you, John. Yes, and please also make sure to include your form W-2 or 1099 with your tax return. Or, for example, if you submitted IRS tax transcript but you are married and you are filing affidavit of support, make sure to include your W-2 at 1099 too, because you need to show what part of the tax transcript income belongs to you as a sponsor, because you're going to be the one signing the affidavit of support. If you have not filed your taxes for the past 3 years, it's not a problem. If you but you need to explain this to them. You need to put in, for example, in additional information, you need to mark no that you have not filed your taxes for the past 3 years. But in additional information, it's very important that you explain why you didn't file. For example, if you didn't make enough income that requires tax filing, you can just say so. Or for example, if you were a student, you were studying, you were not making enough income, of course a joint sponsor is required in this situation, but you still have to explain them why you don't have a tax return for the past 3 years or for the past year or something like that. So please make sure to include this information.
You have to have a valid reason and talk with an accountant about that. But if it's a valid reason, it's okay. Now, if you're making income, you're going to file your taxes, you're going to have to file your taxes. But if it's a valid reason and you have an explanation for it that's legal, then that could be provided, should be provided.
And also be mindful that USCIS loves to issue requests for evidence for affidavit of support, and it's just general template that they send to everyone, and you might not know what is like in your application package. They're gonna send you this general request for evidence, and for example, you forgot to include W-2, but they're not gonna tell you exactly that they need W-2 from you. Okay, so please keep an eye on that and be prepared for that, for receiving a request for evidence. Even attorneys receive a request for evidence. But that's what we have to deal with.
Definitely. Thank you so much. We'll throw a bonus tip in there. If you're doing the affidavit support, primarily you want to use income, so you show that you're working on a regular job, preferably an employee, not self-employed, because self-employment causes more paperwork and confusion. But another way to show you make enough or have enough is using assets. And assets are hard to calculate in many instances, in particular if you're using a home or real estate or the like. And the embassies in particular are not too keen on the asset calculation. So if you have a case going through consular processing, you really want to have someone who has a regular income in a W-2 kind of employee position. Whereas if you're adjusting status, it's a little more flexible if you have assets. But documentation becomes very important on that, and it's hard to do to get all the paperwork together. So be prepared. Try to have someone as a sponsor who makes a regular income. Thank you, Anya, so much for everything. If you all are interested in schedule a consultation with us, reach out to Anya. Her email is anna@jqqlaw.com. That's Anna with 2 N's at jqqlaw.com. I'm John Khosravi. Email is info@jqqlaw.com. Like and subscribe wherever you're watching this, and download the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide at marriageimmigrationlaw.com. I hope that information was helpful. We have a lot more coming, so please subscribe to get more updates and information about the U.S. immigration process. Until the next one, have a good one. Thank you for watching this educational program. To get the latest videos, click the subscribe button and the notification bell icon. Also, help us help the immigrant community by liking this video and sharing it with your family and friends. You can also find us on other social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you find the latest updates on immigration news, policy changes, and tips. Be safe and God bless. See you soon.